Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so excited. We've got a full house again this week. We've got Susan King, Katherine Bone, Tanya Wilde, and Fil Reid with us. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
So because we've got a full house, we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with Susan's book, which we released first this week. And it's The Scottish Bride, and it's book one in a new series. I'm really excited about it. And it's book one in Highland Secrets. Susan, can you tell us about it?
Yes, thank you. Highland Secrets, Scottish Bride. I'm returning with this one to a time period that I've done before, and the backlist books that relate to this book and to this series were actually released earlier this year. The Hawk Laird, Falcon Laird, and Swan Laird. So it's Robert Bruce's Scotland, and with this series, what I've done to sort of bring it together was to have three sisters who are all descended from Thomas the Rhymer, and he has left them each a gift that they have to take very careful care of. And in the case of the Scottish Bride, her name is Tamsin. Her name is Thomasina, for Thomas, and called Tamsin. And she has his writings, but they're all scribbled on little bits of parchment, stuffed in a box. And so she's been putting these into a book. So she's preparing a manuscript. In the meantime, King Edward's found out about this because in those days, the sheriffs of the different regions would sometimes have access to these things. They would know a notable will, or some of the circumstances, or during in the negotiations for a betrothal, for example, the groom would find out about what this woman was bringing. So we have that feeding into it as well. So King Edward hears that he can, if he's clever and aggressive, he can get this book. So he sends Sir William Seton straight out of prison. He was captured as a rebel. If he wants his castle back, you better go find this lady and find this book. So, but they assume that in the beginning, they assumed that this is Thomas the Rhymer's daughter. So he's like, what is she, like 80? I gotta find this woman and get this book from her? That's kind of awful. Or am I supposed to just grab it? So one thing leads to another. He goes up there. She, in the meantime, is climbing out a castle window, trying to get away from a guy who has taken over the castle. That it gets kind of complicated. It used to be Sir William's. Liam used to belong to him. So he's very reluctant to go back there in the first place. So he happens to see her hanging off of a rope coming out of this window. And so he's like, okay, this is easy. She's got a bag with her. It's pretty heavy. Probably got books in it. Okay.
You just have to get her on the rope.
Got the right book in there. Done. All right. Where do you want to go? I'll drop you off. So as it goes along, one thing leads to another, and they're traveling together. And he finds out that, as a matter of fact, she doesn't know what this book is. So they've got to go look for it. She gave it to a bookseller to be a bookbinder to be prepared, and she's working on basically a second volume. So that's the setup. They travel through Scotland. King Edward is not the nicest, so he's sending guys after them, and he's the hero is trying to get his castle back. She's trying to get this book and make sure that no one gets it but her, because her family needs to keep this legacy, close.
So there's some right at odds with each other, which is
yeah. So it's kind of fun when he's like, "Where's this book? What book?" So each sister, then the Forest Bride is now in production. We should have a link for that soon. That's another sister, and she has something else that belonged to Thomas the Rhymer, and I'm working on the third one, the Guardian's Bride, the third sister, has a healing stone that belonged to the Rhymer. So, and each one of them meets a Highlander or a knight who needs to get this thing. So that's the basic setup of this, and I'm really excited about this because these covers are just stunning.
Oh,
I don't know if
gorgeous.
you guys have noticed, but
Oh,
these beautiful covers.
yeah, just
And
gorgeous.
so, and one of the things I like is that, writing Scottish, um, you see a lot of plaid. You see a lot of shirtless guys and a lot of plaid. One thing I like about these covers is that it's different.
Yeah.
So you have this sort of ghosted Celtic wheel, sort of in the background, and some thistle, and very little plaid, and it's just got this really nice Celtic medieval feel to it.
And the hound on the front too.
And the wolfhound on the front, yes. One of the things that he lost when he lost his parents to the English were his wolfhounds. And so she's been in there for, the reason she was actually with us. And she's got the wolfhound. She can update him on how the dogs are doing. So, yeah. That's sort of a big nutshell. Sorry.
No, it sounds like a really exciting series and like a really exciting book. So there's
Fun. I want to do sort of adventure romance. It's medieval really lends itself to that.
I love it when they have a goal that kind of works against each other.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, the next book that launched this week is Catherine's book, and it's My Own Private Lion, and it's a Lyons Den book. Catherine, can you tell us about that one?
Yes, My Own Private Lion is actually, I've created a little series within the Lyons Den. So first one was Two Little Lion, and then Two Little Lion, and now is My Own Private Lion. And it's about one of the Spears sisters, one of the twins that was mentioned in the other books. And like one of the things I had wanted to do with my Lyons Den miniseries, kind of within the series, was to kind of draw it away from the Lyons Den itself and focus on Betty Dove Lyon and what her past was. And so, without spoiling it too much, in Pretty Little Lion, we find out she has a daughter. In this book. And so she's kind of being pulled in to help matchmake and follow in the lines of her mother. And so in the second book, so she was pretty much doing the matchmaking. But in this book, My Own Private Lion, my hero is Quentin Prendergast, and which is the name. Like I thought it was a really funny scene when the girls they have this list of eligible gentlemen that they're supposed to that was actually provided for them by the Black Widow of Whitehall, and so they're going over the list of names, and at the bottom they see Mr. Quentin Prendergast, and they're like, "Who would want to be Mrs. Prendergast?" So anyway, it's kind of funny in a way, but he is not titled. He is a farmer's son, and he pulled himself up through the ranks, kind of like Bessie did. And he's actually her cousin.
Oh, cool.
Distant cousin. And so he's come to London to find a wife. So he's very wealthy. He's gained his wealth off of speculation and investing after he was taken in by someone who mentored him. So kind of his life kind of follows along the same how you make yourself into a better person as how Bessie has come up through the ranks. So he's come to London to find a wife, but none of the ladies, he wants a lady because, he's trying to build something and within his estate and build a family. And none of the ladies will have anything to do with him, obviously, because he's not titled. And so in the beginning, he has a meeting, suddenly like a cute meet with the heroine, and he can't get her out of his mind. And so he decides that he's gonna go to Bessie. He hadn't seen her in 5 years, and he's gonna try to get her help. And he's like, I don't know why I didn't think of this to begin with. But so he's going to see his cousin, and he arrives unannounced. And anyway, she's able to, because he's an artist, because he's had to deal with so many inventions and inventors and things. He's got very good sketching abilities. He was able to sketch the brooch that the heroine was wearing, and from that point on, we find out that it's one of the Mrs. Steers. So basically, it's kind of a someone who is on the wrong side of the tracks meeting someone on the other side of the tracks, and how they get together. Mrs. Dove Lyon is very pivotal in bringing them together, and then it has all the characters from the other two books in it as well.
Oh, cool.
And then what I thought was really funny, there's a scene where he has to bring for they're engaged, a quick engagement, based off of a scandalous thing that happened. And then he's supposed to bring family members to this dinner. Well, he has no family members living except for Bessie. And so he brings her, and but he can't let anyone know who she is. But she arrives all dressed in her black veil, and he's at the door, and the butler looks over and is asking who she is, and he suddenly realizes that he can't give her real name, so he says Mrs. Pigeon. He's just when they were growing up, well, she is 15 years older than him, but when they were growing up, he called her Pigeon because her last name was Dove. So it was like his pet name for her, as that just kind of bursts out. But anyway, so it becomes this thing where he's trying to keep anyone from finding out that she's his cousin, because then that will make him look even, he thinks, in their eyes, it will make him look even worse. The problem is he doesn't realize that many of them already know who she is, because she is the heroine of the first book's mother. And so it's kind of a little bit of a comedy and misunderstandings and things like that. But eventually they marry, and then the story moves on from there. So, but I just really like Quentin. I think he's a really fun fellow.
Cool. Well, he's incredibly handsome on the cover.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time looking at the cover for that one. All the Lyons Den books that are coming through right now have just,
they're very nice.
Yeah, they're just these really wonderful heroes. So awesome. Well, it sounds like a lot to look forward to. And you said is there one other Lyons Den book?
Yes. Well, I'm going to be writing the next one. It's called Lion by the Sea. It's about the other twin, the other Miss Steer. So.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Very cool. So the third book that came out this week is Tanya's book, and it's A Knave by Any Other Name. I love the title of this one. And it's book 3 in Ladies Who Dare series. Can you tell us about that one, Tanya?
Yes. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted, yes.
Yeah. No, sorry.
I'm sorry, we had a little bit of interference. I had to mute everybody to try and make it a little bit easier to hear, but you can talk away. We can hear you.
No worries. So A Knave by Any Other Name is Selena and Warwick's story, and it's kind of where the heroine, she's at the beginning of the book, out of the bat, she's suffering a loss of identity because she appears on a list of heiresses that is attached to the betting book of White's that her brother had a hand in making as a heiress, of course. And then also their worst and best attributes are listed there. And hers is her brother, her best and her worst one. So she's kind of just feeling, a loss of like, what's the meaning of life? Like, why? And she gets kind of a whiff or a sniff that there's a secret women's club going on in society, and she wants part of it. So she kind of embarks on a journey to find meaning beyond titles, if you will. And then we have the hero, who's her brother's best friend, and he's been charged to protect her from any consequences of his own actions, he and actually Warwick's actions, because they were both part of this list. But he doesn't want to do this. He kind of sees it as a chore. But Seville can't protect his own sister because she's quite mad at him. So they kind of having a distance thing. And how they just embark on some hilarious adventures trying to find this club. And is this club even good or is it bad? Because they get a sense that it's mysterious in not the best ways. So yes, it's kind of, in a nutshell, what the book is about.
It's fun. And it's a brother's best friend romance too, right? I love those.
Yes. A
Even
cute
if the
little
brother this time is problematic, so.
Yes, and how they overcome all their things. And also she's had crushes on all her brother's friends and also on Warwick, but it didn't last, but it lasted the longest. And now it's all coming kind of all coming back, and they have to deal, or she has to deal with that as well.
Fun. Great. Now, how many books are in the series?
7.
Oh, so we still have 4 more to go.
We still have 4 more to go. Yes.
Oh, great.
I hope it is 7. To Tanya quick, it's 7. I'm actually busy writing the last one at the moment. So yeah, wrapping everything up.
Yeah. It's hard. It must be hard to go back, when you're so far further down the series at this point.
Yes, I always have to remember, okay, this is this book. I tend to mix, you tend to mix it up sometimes. And by the time this book, like, I had to go read the blurb again today, like what happened in this book to try and, explaining is the hard part.
No, well, that makes sense. Well, there's a lot to look forward to there then if we still get 4 more in the series. So
yes.
So the last book that releases this week is Phil's book, and it's your first Regency, is that right? And it's Regency time travel. So, oh, Phil, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Let me get you. There you go. Now I got you.
Oh, right. There's a series of 4, and they're called The Cornish Ladies. And the first one is a Regency time travel, but the other 3 aren't.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, in the first one, I guess it was because I'd already written a time travel, and I did
wonder about that.
Yeah, I was entering into a new genre, really, writing Regency. And I just thought, what would it be like going back there and seeing what it was like? And when I did it once, I didn't want to do it again. In the first book, it's called The Cornish Mermaid. And it's a play on words because I live in Cornwall now. Although I actually wrote the books before I moved to Cornwall. But I love Cornwall. And I did a lot of research because Cornwall's got its own language. It's another Celtic language. And there's a lot of words that are unique to Cornwall. And the heroine in this first book, who's got Cornish heritage, is called Morvoran, which means sea maiden or mermaid. And she goes on holiday down to Cornwall with her soon-to-be ex-boyfriend because he's horrible to her. She persuades him to go riding on the beach and he gets a sore bottom. And so he says, you'll have to come fishing with me. And they do lots of fishing trips in places like Cornwall where you can go out on a boat and catch mackerel. And I've done it. And I went with my husband and I did not like it. I was terrified. So she goes and she's terrified because she doesn't like it.
Is it rough? Is the water rough?
Well, I thought it was when I went. I did not like it, and it's reasonable. The swell comes along, and she's not fishing. He's ignoring her. He's helping the other tourists. He's showing off. He's really horrible to her. And a swell comes along, and she kind of gets tossed up in the air. And when she comes down, the boat's not there. It's moved on, and so she falls into the water, and she thinks she's drowning. Anyway, she gets swept up in someone's fishing net. From the bottom of the sea back into 1811, and she's fished out by the hero, whose name is Kit Carlyon, Christopher, and he is actually a Viscount. Or she doesn't discover that for ages that he's a Viscount, because of course to begin with she doesn't think she's back in the past. She thinks he fishes her out of the water. He thinks he's caught a mermaid because she's wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and she's kind of wrapped up, sort of, and her legs are like this in the net, and they look like kind of a mermaid's tail in jeans. So for a minute, first of all, he thinks she's dead, then he thinks she's a mermaid, and then she comes back to life and spews up all this water. And he takes her back. I like to place my books in places I've been to and visited. So I've got a cross between 2 separate little coves I've been to in Cornwall, one of which is called Porthcurno. And he takes her back to there's just a farm. There isn't in Porthcurno, there's a little village, but he takes her up to the farm where his uncle lives, because he normally lives in his stately home in Wiltshire, but he comes down to Cornwall a lot because he has a secret. He's a smuggler. And he stays with his uncle on his farm. And of course, his uncle is not at all pleased that he's brought some young woman up from the beach, because they've got
mermaid or not.
No, they've got a load of contraband coming over from France that night, and he doesn't want anybody to see. And of course, she does. She's not meant to. There's a maid who gives her hot milk, and it's heavily dosed with brandy, but she doesn't drink it because she doesn't like it. And so she's woken up in the night by the sound of all these ponies going past, these little pack horses. So she looks out and she sees them all down there. And the hero notices she's looking, and she thinks he's going to come and murder her. She doesn't. Anyway, he decides that the only thing he can do with her, because she was staying in Penzance, which is about, I don't know, 6 miles away. So he takes her into Penzance on a horse, having made her change her clothes. And she thinks she's in a reenactment, or that she's a very weird cult that, dresses like the 18th century. Anyway, they put her in some old clothes they've got, which belong to his mother. So they're really old fashioned anyway. So they're not Regency clothes. They're like 1780s, that sort of era. So she's wearing these clothes and she has to ride a horse side saddle, which she's never done before. And they go into Penzance and she's completely flabbergasted, because Penzance does not look anything like the Penzance. It's much smaller for a start, and the cottage she's staying in is basically a bit of a slum. So then he has to take her home, and he decides the only thing he can do is he can take her back to Wiltshire, where his mother lives, because his mother he's single, obviously. Takes her back to Wiltshire, and he's got a much younger sister who's called Isella. I chose all the names; they're proper Cornish names. So Isella is a Cornish name, and because his mother is Cornish, that's his connection to Cornwall. And Isella is the heroine of book 2, which is called The Cornish Bride, and she's very much an ingenue. So Morvoran comes into it. I mean, she ends up married to Kit. But the one thing she does know, when she was in Penzance on holiday, she went into a little museum when her boyfriend was off fishing, living on her own. And in the museum, there's a display, and it's about how the revenue men made an enormous raid on the beach on a load of smugglers in Cornwall in 1811. And there's a picture on the wall. It's a reproduction of a portrait. When she gets there, she realizes that the portrait was Kit, and he was killed on the beach.
Oh no! Oh,
she realizes what she's got to do. The reason she's back in the past is she has to save Kit's life. She does, obviously. But she has a lot of setbacks when she's trying to do that.
Yeah, but that whole idea of can you change history or is history fixed is a theme for you.
Yeah, I do like that theme. It's quite interesting. But the second book is The Cornish Bride, and that's got Isella is the heroine. But Kit has a friend. Kit and Isella have a friend in Wiltshire who's called Caroline. She's the heroine of book 3.
Oh, cool.
That is the Cornish inheritance. They're all set in Cornwall. Although there are bits in London. There's quite a bit of Isella's book is in London with balls and things, because she ends up running off with a bloke that she shouldn't be running off with. She's a bit headstrong. And then the final book is The Cornish Widow, and that takes us forward to 1815. So it covers, but they're all connected. All the people in it are connected.
Oh, fun. Well, it's I'm hoping that you enjoyed writing your first Regency. I know that was a diversion.
I did enjoy it, but my favourite was the one about Isella, because she's my favourite character. I love her in the Cornish Mermaid, and I really like her in her own book.
Oh, fun. When they talk to you like that, it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Good thing. Well, I thought since we just have a few minutes left, one of the things that I like about getting to interview all of you is that I get to hear little bits and pieces of what your life is like. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about, I know some of you still work day jobs. Some of you used to have really interesting jobs before. And I think writers come to writing in kind of a roundabout path often. And so I thought maybe we could take just a few minutes and talk about what were your favorite jobs or your least favorite jobs or most interesting jobs or anything that you think helped you get to where you are to make up characters in your head and stories in your head.
well, when I was a child, my sister and I used to make up stories at night when we were lying in bed, and I think that started me off.
Did you and your sister share a room?
Oh yeah, we did when we were little. Yeah. And then when we were a little bit older, she used to come in my room and spread her blankets on the floor, and we'd still make up stories. But she died last year, so.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
But my favourite job's been working with horses.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of things. I've ridden race horses. I've worked in a stud. I worked in the stud that is attached to Highclere Castle.
I thought that there was a Highclere connection.
Yeah. So that was quite interesting. I've been inside Downton Abbey itself.
Very cool. Very cool. Does anybody else have anything interesting, or do you want me to just call on you? I can do that. Oh, Susan does.
Am I on mute?
No,
Am I
you're unmuted.
unmuted? I started out, actually, I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, but impractical, so I went to art school.
I took a very similar path, Susan.
You know, that was smart. So from art school, though, I started taking art history classes. I ended up in a PhD program for art history, studying lecturing in art history for several years. So, you know, in the big amphitheater classrooms where you have dark and you're showing slides 30 feet in the air, and you know, that kind of thing. And what I like to say, and I think it's really true for me, is that I really learned to write in art history, because there, when you study of an artist or a particular work of art, notes and the research, your writing has to be just really high quality. And when you tell a story about a painting or an art, you're really telling the story, and you're capturing that reader. You're doing all do in fiction, which I didn't realize at the time. You know that
That makes perfect
that I was
sense.
learning those skills. You know, so that was really, really good. And then when I started having babies and stayed home, because I was teaching maybe 2 days a week, so there were days when the kids were in daycare, and most of the time I was with them. Then the rule that I had was take them to preschool, don't go to the grocery store, don't go home and do some cleaning, go home and write. So I started writing fiction then, but I pulled in my research and PhD stuff into my very first book, which was a medieval book about a manuscript illuminator, because my specialty was medieval.
Oh, very cool.
So that's where that came from, and the research skills. That's why I'm Mary Jo Putney the other day. We did an interview this week, and she called me a research ninja. And I'm like, I love that.
That's t-shirt worthy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's some of my background.
That all makes perfect sense. So. Katherine, what about you?
As far as like jobs, or when did I think I wanted to?
Whichever catches you.
I would have to say, my mom was reading romance novels when I was a teenager, and I could never understand why she was always going. Like when I was asking a question, she would be like, "Go away, go away," and I never understood why. But she was reading the big Kathleen Woodiwiss books, and didn't want to be distracted. But I think when I was 16, she handed me The Flame and the Flower, and I realized, because I had never really wanted to read. I hadn't found my niche, right? The things that I was really interested in. But although I was really interested in history. And so then when I started reading that, it kind of pulled that together for me, that love for reading stories, especially large stories of adventure and relationships and all that together. And then I was going to say, Susan, I went to art school too. And I fell in love with bookmaking and printing. So we would make our own books and things, and I was also into poetry. So at the time, it felt right to me to contain words within a framework. And but it wasn't until I got married and being in the Army, and moving all over the place and having to make friends. A lot of times you were very lonely. So the books, really helped with that. Really helped you escape. Like, I would read into the night when my husband was on TDY, and I had to get up. I'd be reading till 1:30, and I'd have to get up really early with my kids, and it was nothing to me then. But it wasn't until I got my first computer, like this huge, big mammoth thing that we got in the early 90s, and I thought, oh, maybe I could type on this. Maybe it would be easier. And so that's when I started really trying to actually write an actual book. And as far as my worst job, I would say that was at Osco Drugs. It was my first job, and I was a cashier. It was back when the cashiers were the old typewriter kind,
Big buttons.
and every week the ads would change, and you had to memorize all the sale prices.
Oh, because they wouldn't be automatically updated in a system because there wasn't
because
a
you
system.
didn't know them, and then we'd have customers come up and they'd get mad because you gave the wrong price, and so it was horrible. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd be sitting up in bed, and I would be doing the
Oh no! Oh no! Oh my goodness!
I would just find myself sitting up in bed doing the cash register, trying
my
to make the sales. So anyways, I think that was, it was my first job, but so it was an adventure in that respect too. But it was also like the worst job because of everything you had to do. But my best job that I had was doing military illustrations.
Oh, cool!
I did illustrations for military manuals. So
Very cool.
that was really fun.
Very cool. Awesome.
Sounds
I
great.
knew we would learn interesting things. So, Tanya, what about you?
Well, I don't know about my worst job, but the scariest one was back in school when I was for 1 week at a hotel looking after small children.
Oh goodness.
Still haunts me. But no, yeah. So then after school, I've only had kind of one 9-to-5 job, and I was in that job for 12 years in a financial brokerage firm. I was in the accounting department, though I was kind of more jack of all trades for the business. Like if something needed to be done there, just get Tanya to go do it. So that is also the building where I worked was across our local library. So in lunch times, I would go sit there and read. And that's kind of how I was kind of got addicted to romance reading because I didn't want to read anything else. So yeah, and that's just how I got obviously reading a few years and then just deciding I'm going to write my own book. And yeah, that's how I got started.
Fun.
So this would be the most favorite job, though, no? The writing romance.
I think that's generally the case for everybody, even if it's a little painful sometimes to sit and stare at a blank screen. So,
yeah, it's very painful.
Ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate a chance to get to know you all better. I know our readers do as well. So, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to say the same thing I do every week, which is that Dragonblade books are the best deal on pre-order and release. You want to grab them right now when you can. If you don't manage to get them on pre-order, then you can always read them in Kindle Unlimited too. So, thanks so much, ladies. We'll be back here the same time next week.
Thank you.